All right, we're starting now. Well, welcome to the CrowdSec for Absolute Beginners workshop. Yep. I don't expect much from you guys. What I do expect though is that you have a little bit of experience with SSH and Linux, and also that you know at least one editor in the terminal that you can use on Linux. For example, Nano, Joe, VI, Emacs if you're that advanced, and also you need to have some kind of computer with an SSH client, and it would be great if you know a little bit about CrowdSec. I will be talking about how CrowdSec works in a little bit more detail, though, so you don't have to know that much. Obviously, this is a beginner's workshop, so well, I don't expect you to know that much. Yeah, welcome to the new version of this workshop. This is the second time I'm running this workshop, and this is being recorded, just so you know. The objective with this workshop is to learn about CrowdSec architecture and some common use cases. Then we'll install the CrowdSec agent and the nginx bouncer. We'll also set up reCAPTCHA with the nginx bouncer and test that it actually works. And we'll work a little bit with the CSCLI. The CSCLI is a command line tools where you interact with the CrowdSec agent on a daily basis. One of the things we'll be doing is that we'll be loading code logs, old log, into CrowdSec, and you'll see how that works. Then we'll be talking a little bit about observability, how we visualize the results of CrowdSec using Metabase if you want to host it yourself, or using the console if you want to use the CrowdSec console. That's our SaaS solution that's free to use. And we'll also talk a little bit about certain features in the CrowdSec console. Most of all, the CTI lookup, where you can look up certain IPs that are tagging you to see how are those IPs known to the entire crowd. The workshop itself, in the channel called Workshop Slides, there's a link to these slides. I strongly suggest that you open them in a separate browser window or tab or whatever, because there'll be some copy pasting. There are some commands that you don't want to type out yourself. After each assignment, I'll wait for everybody to finish before we move on. And then if you're bored by that, I suggest that you just move ahead at your own pace, no problem. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM during the workshop. Afterwards, you can ask questions in the workshop channel or in a relevant support channel if it's a more general CrowdSec question and not related to the workshop as such. All right, this is these next slides will be about how CrowdSec works, the architecture of CrowdSec, and the CrowdSec consensus engine, the engine that decides whether an IP is bad or not. This is not a forward talk about what CrowdSec is. If you want that, I'll suggest the talk that I did in B-Sides London in 2021 in November. You will find that talk also in the recorded videos channel here on the Discord. The first thing that I really want you to know is that CrowdSec is not just a new version of Fail2Ban. In reality, CrowdSec is a highly advanced framework for detection anomalies of virtually any kind. CrowdSec can do so much more and protect against way more advanced attacks compared to Fail2Ban. Fail2Ban is meant to mitigate brute force attacks, and it is actually a very, very good tool, but it's old and it's made for a different time. So instead we have CrowdSec, which does what Fail2Ban does and so much more. What CrowdSec can do is that it can look at and mitigate at layer 7 DDoS, meaning you have a website and a bunch of servers access it, or a bunch of clients access it at the same time, and your website goes down. CrowdSec can see if a visit to your website is a bot or it's actually a common user, and it can block those bots. There's also a bouncer for Cloudflare and Fastly that you can use together with this to mitigate the attacks, and then using Cloudflare and Fastly to block them as well. CrowdSec can also be used for bot scraping or bot scalping attacks. Bot scalping is where bots buy things cheaply on a website just to resell them at a higher price. Think graphic cards or football clubs or football tickets or concert tickets or whatever. CrowdSec can also detect credit card stuffing, which is when bad guys buy credit cards in bulk. They want to test if they work or not. Then for a site they purchase something with a small amount, and thus this is automated for more than for thousands of credit cards. Credit for thousands of credit cards, and this is called credit card stuffing. And obviously, CrowdSec can also detect that, and data exfiltration, and a lot more. And also, as we'll see later, CrowdSec doesn't just block traffic. There are other options such as the capture is available where it doesn't block traffic. It just forces a user to go through a capture to see if you are a real user or not. Because if you're running an e-commerce site, you don't want to block users because that can potentially cost you money. Last but not least, CrowdSec in theory can load and investigate all data, because CrowdSec works with a number of different data sources, and once the data source has loaded the data inside CrowdSec, so to speak, it's an object. And when it's an object, you can do anything to it. So it's really just a matter of the data source you have and the scenarios that you have defined. CrowdSec can detect and work with, well, anything. It's just a matter of getting the right idea and the right data source, of course. The way CrowdSec works is that you connect the data source that you want to the CrowdSec agent. That can be syslog D, it can be journald, AWS CloudTrails, or AWS Kinesis, or Docker log files, Docker logs, or just a plain flat file. And at Windows, it can even be the Windows event log. The agent passes those log files, it detects threats, and it also gets block lists down from the common CrowdSec servers. And the bouncer, that is the IPS part of CrowdSec, that it remediates the threats, blocking IPs or forcing user through a capture, as I said before, either on layer 7 or layer 3 in the OC stack. Yes. Then the bouncer remediates, as I said before, and after that, data is shared with the CrowdSec cloud, CrowdSec crowd, so to speak. And after they have been they've been shared, they are being assessed, and after assessing if an IP is bad or not, it will be shared with the rest of the crowd. That's basically, very short put, this is how CrowdSec works. And this is more of an overview. It shows the flow. On the left side, you can see logs entering via data sources, and behavior is detected. The local API pushes attacks known as signals, and receive community block lists from the central API. The firewall bouncer or a bouncer or any bouncer query the agents for block lists and blocks traffic to those, and then notification is sent via Slack or Splunk or Elasticsearch or anything else. We have an HTTP API plugin that can work with anything from Telegram to Teams to push bullets to whatever you want to use, whatever you want to notify via. And yeah, that is basically it. This is another overview of the CrowdSec architecture, because what is really important to understand is that even though that CrowdSec, when you have CrowdSec running on one server, it looks as if that's what it does. But CrowdSec is really very API centric. This means that all components, they can run distributed or not. Basically, they can run on any server on the network and communicate using REST API to the other components. And that makes CrowdSec extremely flexible in terms of scalability. Basically, you can scale it as much as you really want to. You can have one CrowdSec server that passes log for thousands of servers, and yet only one agent speaks to the CrowdSec crowd. So yeah. One of the questions that we often get asked, or I often get asked, is how do we deal with poisoning or false positives in CrowdSec? And that is a really good question. But the way it works is that when IPs are received by the community, we call them signal, they end up in the smoke data lake where they are evaluated. And right now, there's around 2.3 million IP addresses in the smoke data lake. And it's suitable for use in a SOC or SecOps or a CM context. Basically, you can use these as an extra source of CTI in your triaging process in your SOC. And we're also working on an API for that, so you can integrate this information with MISP, for instance. Once those IP are assessed, they end up in another data lake called the fire data lake. Basically, there's no smoke without a fire, and that data lake is has around 21,000 IP addresses, and these are the IPs that we know are bad, and these are the IPs that are being distributed to all CrowdSec agents using the block list. Yep. And to avoid false positive, there's a trust ranking system. Basically, each agent that submits data has a trust rank from 1 to 99. And on top of that, we have our own honeypots that are used to evaluate community signals. Those have a trust rank of 100. Basically, your trust rank is depending on for a long time you have been sending reliable signals to the crowd. So you can, once you enter the crowd as a new CrowdSec agent, you will have a trust rank of 1, and then after 6 months of sending reliable signals, you will have a trust rank of 99. And whenever an IP is deemed or is being assessed, it needs to have a certain amount of points, and the points are based on the trust rank. And basically, the reason why it is like that is that we want to make it as expensive and as hard as possible for criminals to set up false agents or something else that really matters and is able to poison. And on top of that, and the voting process only votes from one ASN count, or points only counts from one ASN once. Meaning, let me exemplify. You can't buy 1,000 servers on AWS and then have 1,000 votes, because AWS doesn't have more than a handful of ASNs. So basically, if you want to disrupt the consensus process, you need to have a number of agents running on a number of different ASNs all around the world in order to influence. And as I said before, it takes a long time to achieve enough trust rank to actually make any difference in the process. So yeah, that's a little bit cumbersome if you want to disrupt this. As I said before, that's the honeypots. They have trust rank of 100. Then there's also a whitelist mechanism, meaning that we don't want to ban Google SEO bots or Google DNS or stuff like that. So IPs on this list will never get banned. And thirdly, there is this predictive algorithm. You can almost call it like pre-crime, because what it does is that it looks at a net block and see how many IPs of that net block has been doing bad things. At a certain point, we'll just estimate, or we'll just guess that the rest of IPs in this net block are bad, so we'll ban them all. So yeah, and then eventually, or if it is bad, the consensus engine will put these IPs into the fire data lake, where they will stay for 72 hours. Because you probably know the internet is volatile, things are happening fast. IPs are getting hijacked and returned to their owners, every day. So it doesn't make sense to have them more like that, more than those 72 hours in each or in the fire data lake. And after they've been put in a file data lake, they're distributed back to every agent. This is a very simplistic overview of the data flow. It took a little while before I understood that the bouncer asks the agents. It's not the agent that pushes anything to the bouncer. It's the other way around. And then as I said before, signals are being pushed to the sensor API, the CAPI, where they're being assessed by the consensus, and what is really bad, those IPs that are really bad, are being sent back to the agent as block lists. In terms of observability, there are a number of ways where you can get insight into what your CrowdSec agent is doing. First of all, you can set up Grafana using a mobile Prometheus service or local Prometheus service, but we won't be covering that today. Instead, we'll be talking about how you can get data out using the CRCLI, or we'll show you how you can do it with Metabase, and lastly, how you can show how you can use the CrowdSec console to show what's going on with your CrowdSec agent. In terms of configuring the CrowdSec client, there are a couple of files that are important. One of the most important files is the acquisition file, the acquis YAML file. In this file, it's defined which data sources and types you are using. So if nothing is defined here, nothing will get into CrowdSec, and CrowdSec won't be doing anything. In the etc CrowdSec bounces directory, this is where the config file for where your bounces are. And the profiles YAML file is also a pretty important file. We'll be looking at that in the workshop. Basically, what it does is that it decides what is happening when a scenario is triggered, which kind of alerts are being triggered on which scenarios, and also if you're doing notification, those are also configured in here. We won't be doing that though. Instead, we'll later on in the workshop we'll be defining which scenarios should be mitigated using which bouncer, basically, or which mitigating opportunity or measure. In terms of log files, that's the CrowdSec log file. In that file, it's being logged what the CrowdSec agent does. And also in var log, there are also log files for the different bouncers. And yeah. So, and this is the last talking slide before we start getting into the workshop. So please bear with me. Signals. Those are the local information on a given attack that's being sent to the CrowdSec data lake. LAPI, that's a local API that is used to control the various element of the CrowdSec stack locally. That's the CAPI, the central API, where your CrowdSec agent gets a block list and it sends signals back to the Smoke data lake. The agent, it does all the parsing of logs, controls bounces, and also communicates with the CAPI. It doesn't block anything. It's important to understand that the only element of CrowdSec that blocks anything is the bouncer. Yeah, the parser parses log. It is written in YAML and or grok. A scenario is what describes the attack that we want to react upon, and those are written in YAML. A collection can be a collection of parsers and or a collection of scenarios. It can also just be a collection of scenarios on its own. For instance, the collection called HTTP CVE is basically it contains scenarios of common web attacks, and then basically, if you have that collection installed, you will be collecting information about those attacks, like the Spring4Shell or Log4j, and a number of other attacks are in there. Post overflow is the action that's being executed when a given scenario has been triggered. For instance, enrichment of the IP, enrichment using DOIP, that is being run every time an IP is being banned. In terms of decisions, the decisions are generated when a scenario is triggered, and an alert is what is being acted upon whenever a decision is triggered. And a decision is turned into an alert based on local preferences. For instance, a 4-hour ban or whatever or however you want to ban, so how long time you want to ban. That's being done in the Profilexml file, and we'll be looking at that in a little while. All right. So now the fun starts. So please send me a DM, and I'll return an IP, or I'll return 2 IPs and the DNS hostname for you that you need to use for the workshop. All right, come and send me a DM. Oh, there you go. Yes. All right. So basically, you should SSH to each of your IPs. The username is workshop for both of them, just workshop, nothing but workshop, not a number, just workshop. And the password is loudgoose90, also in both. So whenever you log into it, you will be forced to change password. You change the password, and then you will be disconnected, and you'll need to reconnect again using the new password. So please do that. Just so you know it, just so that you know that it works. And this is really when you need the slide set open in your own browser, because you don't want to type this on your own. Instead, you want to copy paste. The first line is adding our repositories to your server, and then after that you'll be installing CrowdSec and the firewall bouncer, because yeah, it's so easy to install. And then thirdly, you'll be installing the nginx bouncer. All right. Username is workshop, password is loudgoose90, and it's also available in the slides channel. Oh, sorry, the workshops channel. In a little while, I need to find it there and paste it again. So from now on, if you need the password, it is in the workshops text channel. Good. And please let me know if you have any problems connecting to your VPS. Yep. After installing those 3 packages, you will see this is from when you install the CrowdSec agent. You will see stuff that could look like an error message, but actually it's not. The lines in bold, those are the CrowdSec agent that also detects that nginx is installed, that you're running on Linux, and you're installing on SSH. And basically you're installing CrowdSec on the workshop machine, on the workshop VPS, and not on the attacker. The attacker is used to attack, and the workshop IP is where we're installing CrowdSec to and testing it afterwards. Yeah. And again, please let me know if you have problems logging into your VPS. Yep. All right. Has everybody installed the CrowdSec agent now?
Sorry, I need just a couple of seconds.
All right, no problem. Just let me know when you're done. because afterwards, when you have installed the CrowdSec agent, one of the first things that you will be missing when you're a common or a trained Linux user, so to speak, you will miss bash completion. So luckily, the CSCLI is made by people that also loves bash completion. So there's a built-in function for creating that bash completion script, so that you won't have to type more than absolutely necessary. And in order to install that, just to type in those or copy paste those 2 lines. Basically, the first line is creating the config file, and the second one is just reloading your bash shell. And then once you've done that, test it out by typing sudo cscli and then pressing tab, and then you should hopefully get a list of options to the cscli. All right, ready?
Yes.
All right, great. Yes. So in the meantime, I'll be telling you a little bit about the CrowdSec Hub, because the CrowdSec Hub is a central repository for parsers, collection, and bouncers. You can compare it to Ansible Galaxy or the Docker Hub, and you also find community contributions there. We add those that the user wishes to. Basically, you just do a pull request to the CrowdSec Hub repo, and then things will be added there automatically. The CSCLI is integrated with the CrowdSec Hub, meaning that whenever you download stuff, parsers, collection, whatever, with the CSCLI, it actually hooks into the CrowdSec Hub. So that's pretty neat. Here's a little bit of overview of how to use the CSCLI. One of the it's one of the overlooked things that you may not be attentive to whenever you start using the CSCLI is that things don't update by itself. Basically, install parsers, collections, and stuff like that. It doesn't auto update, so you need to update it manually, and luckily there is a command for that. So the hub update and the hub upgrade basically updates the list of available packages or whatever, and hub upgrade downloads them and install them. So that is relatively easy. In terms of managing collections, parsers, or scenarios, they are all the same. Sudo CSCLI collections a list, then that lists the collection that you have installed, and if you put a -a on the end, you will get a list of those collections available on the hub. Then to install those, it's install, and then the name of the collection, upgrade, basically upgrade all collections, and upgrade, basically upgrade that one collection if you type a name after it, and upgrade .a upgrades all your collection. And as I said, the same command goes for scenarios, parsers, post overflows, etc. Just substitute collections with something else. If you want to get an overview of what your CrowdSec or what your CSCLI is doing, or what your CrowdSec client is doing, CrowdSec agent, sorry, then you can type sudo CSCLI metrics, and then you'll get a nice overview of that, how many logs are being parsed, etc., how many decisions are made, and stuff like that. Yeah, we need to make sure that the nginx collection is installed. It should have been installed if the auto or if the install wizard worked, but please try and list all the collections that you have installed, And if the nginx collection is not there, please install it. And on top of that, we would also want to install the HTTP CVE collection as well. That was the collection I talked about before that has a number of commonly known attacks in them, or scenarios for detecting commonly known attacks. Because as I said before, we really want to report whenever bad guys are doing something out there and report it back to the crowd. And after that, we'll be working with the CSCLI replay mode where we load some old logs into CrowdSec. So please let me know when you're ready for that.
The last message I get after importing them is CrowdSec shutdown. Is this meant to be?
Well, when you start the replay, it starts up a new instance of CrowdSec, and after importing, it is shutting down that instance again. So the CrowdSec agent that runs all the time, it still runs.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, that's a little bit confusing. The replay mode is a useful feature if you want to show somebody what could have happened or what CrowdSec could have done if you had it installed. You could put all your old logs through CrowdSec to see, to have an historical overview of what could have happened with if CrowdSec if CrowdSec had been installed. It's also a great feature to see if a new exploit is coming out. For instance, when Log4j came out, we did a scenario for that, and if you install that scenario and then load all your logs through CrowdSec, you could see if somebody had been trying to exploit Log4j before it had became public, or Spring4Shell, or something else. So that is pretty nice. One of the reasons why we use the replay mode in the workshop is also that it's pretty boring to get a graph out of nothing. So it's good to have it installed, and then you can actually see something inside Metabase whenever we're installing that. When you're doing the replay thing, you get lines like this showing that for every line there is a new attack that's being detected from the log file. As you can see, Spring4Shell, VMware vCenter, and a lot of other attacks are being detected. All right, let's continue with the nginx and the bouncer part. I've installed an nginx server on your workshop machine. It doesn't really do anything. It just shows the basic or the default nginx website whenever you install on Debian at least. But what we will be doing is that we'll be setting up Google reCAPTCHA. We'll be configuring the nginx bouncer. Then we'll check which scenarios are installed to make sure the right ones are installed. And then we'll configure the acquisition file, the acquisition YAML file, the profile YAML file as well. And then we'll verify that everything works as it should, and we'll do that using Nikto. And Nikto is an extremely good tool for this because it's so noisy that no matter what, the attacks will be detected. And that's good in this case, at least. The first thing you should do, and this requires a Google account, is to go into google.com/reCAPTCHA/admin/create, and then you will set up a reCAPTCHA session for this basically the label, you can type whatever you want to. You can set it up using reCAPTCHA version 2 and do not and the I'm not a robot checkbox. And then on the domains, it's really important that you type amazonaws.com because we are using VPSs in AWS. And then accept the term of service, and after registering, you will get something that looks a little bit like this. You will have two keys, a secret key and a side key, and those keys we will need to configure the bouncer with. So you need to remember those, or you need to find some way of copy them over. Logically is pretty easy. They have a button for copying to your clipboard, and then you can open the editor and like this, and open the bouncer's CrowdSec nginx bouncer conf file and paste those two keys into it, as well as adjusting the mode equals live line so that it says mode equals stream. And when you've done that, please restart nginx. Afterwards, we'll be configuring the acquisition YAML file, or rather, we'll be checking if the acquisition YAML file is already being configured. It should, and then if it is, it doesn't look exactly like this. This is the lazy version where you put in an asterisk, and it basically reads any files that ends with .log. If it's been pre-configured, there will be two lines. One is for access log and one is for error log. And as I said, it should have been auto-configured, but we want to make sure. So please, so we're checking if they are added. And before or while you're doing that, I want to talk a little bit about the profiles YAML file and the role of profiles YAML. This is what happens when a scenario is triggered. Basically, the profile YAML defines the alert, so to speak. This is where you decide how long time an IP should be banned or mitigated. Default is 4 hours. This is also the place where you decide which type of remediation that should be applied. Default is ban. And also this is where you define the scope of the remediation, and default is IP. And the reason why you can actually configure this is related to what I said in the beginning, that CrowdSec can detect anything, really, any deviation. But by default, we're using IPs. And also you can enable or disable debug for a given or for a specific profile. Right now, by default, there is one profile in the profiles YAML file. We'll add in another profile in the same file, but we'll do that in a few seconds. This is how the profile YAML file looks by default. Everything that's an IP gets banned for 4 hours. Basically, that's what it says. And going forward, this will be the default banning behavior, meaning that whatever your profile YAML file says, it shouldn't be deleted. We'll just add more information to it. What we will be doing is that this is the pseudocode version of the profile YAML file, so to speak. First, we'll add in a section that says that any scenarios that start with CrowdSec security HTTP will be forced through a CAPTCHA for 4 hours, and everything else will just ban them for 4 hours. So basically, this is what you do. The part of the text that I have marked with green, you are not supposed to touch that. Just take the other part, the first half of the file, so to speak, copy and paste it into the profiles YAML file. And it's very important that you remember those 3 dashes, because if you don't, then you get a weird error because YAML is very picky, which you probably know. And once you've done that, please reload CrowdSec, and then just for the fun of it, check out your CrowdSec log file to see if anything, if it spews out any weird error messages or anything. Yep. So if you're ready, then we'll start the fun part, meaning the attack part. So please let me know when you're ready for that.
Might be ready if the others are.
Pardon? All right. Log into the well. You need to do first. You need to do two things. The first thing is to tail the CrowdStack log files on your the CrowdStack log file on your workshop VPS. And secondly, you're starting up another SSH session where you're logging into the attacker IP, and you'll be starting up Nikto there. Nikto-H and basically the IP of the workshop VPS. And right away you will see weird error messages like this, or at least messages saying that this attack has performed this attack, or this IP has performed this attack, and how long time has been doing that, and then it says that it has informed or enforced a capture on this IP for 4 hours. And as long as the attack continues, those messages will keep popping up in your log, and that's actually a good thing, because we needed to be very upset with that IP, because right now the next thing we'll be doing is that we will be testing how it works, or testing it in a browser so you can see that it works. And to do that, we need to do a little bit of SSH tunnel magic, because if you from your computer goes to the IP of the workshop, then you won't be banned and you won't see the capture message. So instead, we want to make it look like our traffic is coming from the attacker IP, so that whenever you are going to the attacker IP in your browser, you will see the capture message. And it's pretty easy. This is what you do. You log into the attacker, and then on the attacker, you will start a local SSH session, SSH-L 0.0.0, listening on all IPs for the 8080. It's been forwarded to the workshop VPS on port 80. And the last part of this command is the localhost command, telling it to do an SSH connection locally. So obviously you need to log on as workshop using whatever password you chose. And if that works, you just get your prompt back. It won't tell you anything because everything works. So without exiting the SSH session, go to your browser, and then you need then copy the DNS entry I gave you when you asked for an IP, paste it into a browser, and append :8080 on that line. And also, if it's HTTPS, change it to HTTP. So basically, then your browser will connect to the attacker IP on port 8080, which will then be forwarded to the workshop VPS on port 80, and you should get something that looks a little bit like this, maybe in your own language, saying that or basically forcing you to authenticate using CAPTCHA. Please let me know if that works, because it's a little bit not cumbersome, but you need to maybe use a little time depending on how good you are at SSH tunnels. And again, if it doesn't make sense, please let me know. I'll be happy to explain. And also sometimes the reCAPTCHA side doesn't work or it doesn't forward due to the reCAPTCHA side. I'm not really sure why. Just keep the Nikto attack running and refresh your browser and suddenly it works. That's how it usually goes. And please let me know when everything is working, or if you have any questions.
Yeah, currently I'm stuck at the sheet before. There's mentioned the second point, log into your attacker VPS.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what is the attacker VPS.
The attacker VPS is the second IP I gave you.
Yeah, okay. I tried this. It's also a workshop at the IP address.
Yeah.
And the password is the one you gave us earlier.
Yeah. Same login and password.
Yes, I need to retry that.
Okay. But I mean, if you have any problems, then I'll be happy to log in and see what's going on. I have a backdoor access to them.
Give me a second.
Sure.
Your password has been expired. You must change the password. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Just a mistypo on my side. Okay. I see.
all right. Great.
Password updated successfully. After that, I'm using the Nikto tool with
Yeah.
the first given IP address, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the SH.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
No problem.
It says Nikto command not found.
Are you sure you're logging into the the second IP?
Yeah, you gave me two.
Yeah.
And let me check back if I'm not telling something crappy. No, it's the second IP.
Hmm. All right, hang on. I'll just log in and see what's wrong. Uh,
Might it help if I send you a screenshot?
no need for that.
Okay.
I'm able to find Nikto on your VPS.
Okay, that's strange. Excellent. Okay, I'll retry.
Yeah, sure. But yes, so send me a screenshot. Maybe. Oh, sorry. I logged into the wrong IP. Hang on. I
Password.
Yeah, same thing.
Minus H.
Nikto
Trying
is
to.
also available on this.
Give me a second.
Sure.
Yeah, no, it works. I see the logs. It happens. All right, thank you.
Great, no problem. All right. And okay. And then please let me know if the SSH tunnel hack trick works.
Just to make sure, I'm on the Kali machine, so the hacker machine, and I'm going to type the SSA H minus L and IP stuff. Also,
Yep.
given it like on your presentation right now. Okay.
Yeah. Good.
Okay, so I did the 5th point, and now I'm stuck at the 6th point. In your browser, connect to the DNS hostname assigned to the attacker VPS on port 8080 example. So at the beginning, I have to change the path to the IP address of my attacker, right?
Yeah, in the browser.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, or not the IP. You need to use the long DNS I also pasted to you.
Okay.
All right. Because else the capture mechanism will complain that you're not using the right domain or stuff like that.
So now I'm getting an issue. It's on German. The website is not accessible. The connection were refused.
Okay, then either the nginx maybe nginx is not running. Could you check that, sorry, I could check that actually, or then the tunnel is not working. That is the two opportunities I'd say there is, or possibilities. Yeah, well, and nginx is running on your server, and then maybe I'll just see if the tunnel is working. Yeah, well, basically, I should be able to try it here as well. Or, yeah. That's weird. It doesn't look like it's working here either. But anyway, it says in the log that you're being blocked, so I don't think we should spend too much time on it.
Okay.
All right. Hang on. So yeah.
Wait a second. I'm not pretty sure. The SSH tunnel, I got an error that my connection is refused when I load the web page. I can show you.
Yeah. It's the same problem that. Oh yeah. Why is that? Oh yeah. The problem. Yeah. The problem is that you shouldn't use the DNS entry there. Just
okay.
That connect well, in that line you need to just type the IP, the first IP that I sent you, the 3.1.1.121 IP.
Yeah, now it works. Thanks.
All right, great. Yes. Well, observability. If the first thing we'll do is to try download the Metabase. Metabase is distributed sort of along with the CSCLI, but as a Docker container really. So whenever you type the CSCLI dashboard command, it downloads the Metabase container, and basically it started up the Metabase. So if you type in that command, it will download the container, and it takes a little while. and make sure that you install that you type in the command -l and 000 and the setup. I think then it will download it and start it up, so it listens on all IPs, so that you can connect to it afterwards. And as I said, it'll take a couple of minutes, and after it has downloaded and running the Metabase, it will give you the credentials that you need to connect to Metabase afterwards. So yeah, please let me know whenever you're ready.
I'm done. For me, it works.
All right, great. And you're also capable of logging into to Metabase afterwards?
Yep.
All right, cool. Yeah. Basically, you log into Metabase and you click the CS main board for review, and then you click the X for previous month to see all the data that you've imported. So the next thing that I would do is to or you should do is that you should go into app.crowdsec.net. This is the CrowdSec console where you should create yourself a user if you haven't already, and then you should add your instance to the console, and do that by pressing the Add Instance button on the website. And after that, you'll be getting an enroll string, so to speak, that you copy paste into your CrowdSec instance, and it will enroll basically. After you've done that, you will get a pop-up in the CrowdSec console that you have to accept, and after that, it will sync the alerts that's already there, so that you can see them in the console. So please let me know whenever you're ready with that. But in the meantime, we should take a look at my own instance, and sometimes that happens. I don't know why. Oh, well, I just reloaded. If you're wondering why my email looks so weird, it has a very simple explanation, because there is a quite a nifty feature here called GDPR filter that is enabled, so you won't see any IPs, you won't see any real email addresses, just because, basically. I have a number of instances here. This is a Windows server, I think, and a Raspberry Pi and a couple of Linuxes, and also when my OpenSense firewalls are there. If you go to the alerts tab, you will see all the attacks that has been happening on my servers, and something weird has happened here. If you compare to the rest of April, somebody has been going crazy.
If I'm going to the alerts tab, I'm not able to see something because it says I have to connect. No, okay, for now it works. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. And also, yeah, you can see which ASNs are attacking you. You can see which countries are attacking you. I don't know what's going on in Italy. It's usually the US that are bad, or China, of course, or Russia. And then in terms of brute force attacks, in terms of attacks, it's pretty usual that SSH brute force are topping the list. A new one here is the end-SSH, which is basically also an SSH brute force attacks. It's just to my end-SSH instance, my tar pit, and a number of other attacks. This thing PHP CV thing, that's from the HTTP CV collection, and also the Fortinet and the Dira and all those are from that collection. So it's a good one to have installed. Let me just show you the CTI feature. But so basically, if you click an IP and you select more about this IP, CrowdSec will look up how much do we know about that IP, and this has been attacking me like crazy, but apparently not for very long. So the entire CrowdSec cloud doesn't really know this IP. So, but as you can see, it has been attacking me like crazy for some time. This Vietnam, yeah, that is no timer. One of those IPs that has been that we have seen, that we started seeing in March last year, and they have just been attacking all over the place. Brute forcing SSH, telnet, and port scanning. They are really annoying. But yeah, so that's how it works. You could also type in a random IP in here in the text field and search for that instead of doing it semi-automatic like I've done. So yeah, that's how that looks. That is pretty cool, especially if you have a number of servers. Yeah, just for fun, you would try and look any of these IPs up that they have at some point been in the Fire data lake. I'm not sure all of them still are, but yeah, try one. Then the next thing we'll be talking about is what happens next, basically, or now that you've gotten to know more about CrowdSec, what can you use it for? And basically, the first thing you need to remember is what I said at the beginning. CrowdSec is not just a fail to ban clone. And here's a little bit of inspiration what you can do with CrowdSec. You can use, or you can protect any website behind a reverse proxy like nginx, HA proxy traffic, or even nginx proxy manager. And if you're more interested in knowing how to install that with CrowdSec, I just wrote an article about it last week. And it's available on crowdsec.net/blog. You can also use CrowdSec to protect your next cloud instance. A contributor created a log parser and scenarios for detecting brute force attacks on Nextcloud. You can also use CrowdSec to protect your WordPress site. There is actually a WordPress plugin for CrowdSec that connects to your CrowdSec agent. And one use case scenario that's a little bit more exotic is that you can use your use CrowdSec to install on an internal server of yours, for instance, a Raspberry Pi, and set it up as a canary device, so that if it's being port scanned or it's being used for DNS lookup or Bonjour or whatever, then you'll get an alert, because you know that is not normal behavior. Something is wrong. Admittedly, you have to be a little bit paranoid to do it, but it's one of those use cases scenarios of CrowdSec that you probably don't think of, or it's definitely not the first one that you think of. CrowdSec is widely available. It's available for Linux, on Raspberry Pi, on a number of other ARM devices. It's available on FreeBSD, on Docker, on OpenSense. Basically, OpenSense is the BSD version that has been shrink wrapped and with new parsers and stuff like that, and scenarios. CrowdSec is also available for Kubernetes, for OpenWRT, and for Windows, and also actually is available for Synology NAS. CrowdSec data sources, those are files, journald, syslog, AWS CloudTrail, Kinesis, and Docker logs. Here's a selection of available parsers for Apache, for Caddy, for nginx, nginx proxy manager, which oddly enough is not nginx. There are parsers for Cowrie Honeypot, for Docker, for Dovecot, mail server, ASA proxy, mod security, asterisk, Vault Warden, and many more. There are bouncers for IP table, for NF table, for PF, for nginx, OpenResty, Cloudflare, Fastly, WordPress, PHP. There's also a custom bouncer. Basically, it runs your own script whenever a scenario is triggered. A member of the community used it to implement his own Apache bouncer. Basically, by whenever a scenario is triggered, an IP is added to Apache's ACL, and Apache is being reloaded. There's also bouncers for Node.js or Express.js if you have an application in JavaScript or TypeScript. If you have an application in Python, you can use our PyCrowdSec library, or you can also use our generic PHP bouncer to protect your generic PHP application of any kind, or a lot more. There's a lot of possibilities here. CrowdSec can also be run serverless, but mostly on AWS. As I said before, it can read logs of AWS. CrowdSec can run in a Kubernetes container, and also there's a bouncer for AWS WAF. So basically, if whatever you're running in AWS that is somehow web enabled, CrowdSec can also protect that. The last slide is about Windows. Although it was released a couple of months ago, something like that. It is a very minimum in terms of functionality. Sorry, that was the word I was looking for. The data source available is the same as on any other platforms. It can detect, or it can be used to parse logs in Windows event logs, in Windows outlogs, MS as well, outlogs, and also Windows firewall logs. And lastly, it can also parse IIS logs, web logs in W3C format. There are scenarios to detect brute force on remote desktop, on SMB, on MS as well. There's also scenarios for detecting port scans, although it is limited because the way Windows Firewall logs works is that it doesn't block or it doesn't log anything if a service is not running on that server. So basically, if you're being port scanned on a port where nothing is running, then then it won't be detected. And there's only one bouncer for Windows, and that's the Windows Firewall bouncer. But it works, no problem. That was the last slide. I would say thank you for joining, and but foremost, I really want to thank you guys for joining our community and want to be a part of it. We're really happy that you're here. Yeah, join the Discord and have fun there. And if you have any questions, technical wise, it's a really good place to get answers to those questions, because it's pretty lively. Yeah, and now I'll stop the recording.